Well, hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 3 of Natsume Yujin-Cho, or Natsume's Book of Friends. And this series so far, it's got such a vibe. It's like calm, soothing, heartwarming, and it has the filter of Drag Race season 1. I think it's just because it came out like so long ago that it just feels, maybe it's the quality of the transfer that the streaming service has, but it feels like there's like a layer of like opaque film over it. It's not bad, but if you've ever watched RuPaul's Drag Race, I've become obsessed with it the last year. The very first season, it looks like somebody put Vaseline over the screen. And there's like a filter there. That's what this show looks like. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that is what it reminds me of. So, but that's fine, right? That's fine. It's retro. We knew that we were signing up for it. So, I wanted to quickly talk about a couple comments. Kaku was talking about how Madara's voice actor is the same as Kakashi from Naruto, as well as Suzuki from Mob Psycho 100. But also, I thought that there were two voice actors playing the role of Madara. One is the little lucky cat, and one is their like spiritual dragon cat form. No, it's the same voice actor. They just changed their voice. That's really impressive. I like this kind of chameleon voice acting where they can be able to do the duality of both voices, which would be kind of a challenge. So kudos. That's awesome. And then Floor, who is the moderator for this series for me, was talking just about kind of the connections between Natsume, who's an orphan, to a character in March Comes In Like a Lion, which I'm watching right now. And so it's like there's like a triangle of intersection between this series, March Comes In Like a Lion, as well as Puella Magi Madoka Magica. So there's like a little crossover between those three series, and I'm watching them all at the same time on this channel. So that's really fun. I like that. I feel like this is definitely on the more chill spectrum than the other two series, but that's good. We need balance. We need variety. Otherwise, I will go insane. So I'm really excited about this episode to come. I hope you all are as well. But before we start, I want to give a very quick shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon, because these patrons support me each month. All of my subscribers and my patrons that are on Patreon right now, I am super grateful for. You all are amazing. But the philanthropy tier, they get a special shout out each week because they donate a little bit more to help me host like the reaction on the site that I have them on. Those funds help pay for that each month because it is a little expensive. So because of that, I want to give a special shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Dana, to Destiny Marie. I have to say it every time like this. Danger Zone! Eric, to Kiri, to Lyndon, to Elfreya, to Boo Boo, to Matthew Palfinier, to Shimoyama, to Sunspots, to Trails, to Translucent Men, to Nameless Monster, to Nicholas, to Murphew, as well as Danny Donmai, Donovan, and the new one in Lee 2. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, we're not going to waste any more time. I want to dive in and see exactly what we get with this episode. Last episode was super sad. There was this cute little spirit that they helped free, and now he could move on to be with the lady that worshipped him, and it's like really cute. So we've done that. Now what? What else do we do on our journey with Natsume as they deliver all of the names back to the spirits that his grandmother collected? We'll see, but we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, I was pleasantly surprised by that episode. As my own form of Madara asks me to throw this toy, yes. I was really surprised by that, mainly because I anticipated that that our boy Tanuma was going to be the exorcist, because like I said at the beginning of this, I watched series like Hanako-kun where there are exorcists that are tasked with the mission to expel spirits, and so I thought we were going that route, and I was like, oh, is this anime about to take a genre twist and become like this big action oriented thing? No. Although I do think it's really interesting that it does have some action that was displayed in this episode that I'm like, oh, okay, they can do some really cool stuff with this, especially in regards to like the purification and all of that, and talking about Natsume making friends and what he deems to be friends and normal and things like that. So there was a lot to talk about with this episode, but I was fully expecting it to be like, I thought this was going to suddenly turn into Natsume and Tanuma being rivals, and then at the end of the episode, Tanuma would be like, well, I'm going to destroy all the spirits, and Natsume would be like, well, I have to release all the spirits, and they were going to like set up a rivalry between them. No! Instead, the series is like, hey, this kid maybe kind of sees ghosts. There was a misunderstanding, but you can use this opportunity to make a friend. I was like, it was much more real world applicable than I thought it was going to be. But there was a lot of expectations and subversions in this episode, and the one twist, I was like, oh, I thought that she was like real, but she was a ghost. But that kind of touches on something we're going to talk about in this episode. Also, I'm finding like so many intersections with Hanako-kun, with Magica Madoka, with March Comes In Like a Lion, also with Pluto that I'm watching now, talking about these two very different groups of entities that are merging together and coinciding that have more in common than not. And I find that really fascinating. But man, yeah, the whole idea that Natsume is very like sad and alone, and then that's when the ghost comes up to talk to him and asks if they're okay. And I thought it was a person. Oh my gosh. And they tried to become friends. They're like, you see strange things. And that's kind of the big message here that Natsume kind of realizes by the end of it. He's like, yeah, these are ghosts and they're different. They're kind of annoying sometimes because they won't leave me alone. But at the same time, they just want to not be lonely. And that's kind of what I want. And that's what his grandmother wanted, was to not be alone. And so I think Natsume's realizing like, yeah, I could see why my grandmother collected this book of names, because she wanted to be able to call out at any time to get a hold of these spirits and connect with them to help ease her own loneliness. And it's interesting that he is letting them go. I feel like as he's realizing that he kind of, could connect with the yokai and be friends with them, but he's letting them go. I think that's so interesting, because you would think that after he had this revelation, he'd be like, well, maybe I'll keep a couple around, but instead he's still going through with it. So I still think we're going to connect back to the grandmother at some point to know why she didn't ever reconnect with the ghost, unless it was just because she died. But there's still so much to go through it, right? But I feel for Natsume, because one, he can't just tell everybody that he sees ghosts. They won't understand, or they'll think he's weird, and he's trying to just coast through high school and not be noticed, because in the past, when he's been noticed, it's led to people ostracizing him. So his natural reflex is like, okay, I'm not going to draw attention to myself, because if I draw attention to myself, people think I'm weird and they avoid me. I'm glad that he has two friends that are so supportive of him, and they're just kind of like bros that are like, hey man, it's okay. We're going to be here if you need somebody to talk to. I'm glad he has that support network, even if he doesn't seem to fully recognize it. It's good that he has friends that are there like that. But I can understand, one, why he's flying under the radar, but also he's exhausted because these ghosts aren't leaving him alone and they're waking him up in the middle of the night. Madara's not helping at all. And so I feel, bad for Natsume, because it's just like snowballing, but he can't talk to anybody about it. So I'm glad at the end of the episode that him and Tanuma seem to like become friends, so he can at least explain to Tanuma, being like, yeah, I've got all this stuff to deal with. It's a lot, but he can kind of maybe vent to somebody that's not a ghost. That part's really good. I like that he makes a friend, right? And Tanuma seems really, really sweet. He's always smiling. He seems very kind. He's just kind of shy and doesn't know if he's weird or not, and so he kind of just avoids. He's almost like a spirit too. But yeah, so God, all these ghosts just showing up his house at the middle of the night, and he just like wakes up and has to like help them get their name back, and then they leave. And then Madara, however you say the cat spirit's name, he shows up drunk with this frog. I think the whole frog thing was planned. I feel like the frog thing was a strategic move by Madara to be like, I'm going to have, because he knows Natsume's going to save the frog. He knows he's just that kind-hearted person. I feel like he did that so that Mitsumu would eventually let him use him in case if he was needed. I feel like Madara was setting this up so that Natsume, because Natsume, I think Madara knows Natsume is not the type of person that's going to seek out ghosts and be like, I need to use you. He's not that type of person. So I think he was setting it up to where the ghost felt like they owed Natsume and that they would work with them willingly. I think he set that up. Would Madara be sneaky like that? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I do think Madara reminds me a lot of Urahara from Bleach, where they're this kind of mentor-y figure, but they're also an absolute troll. I also can't get over their little pill bug. They're just dee. The animation on Madara is so adorable. It's just too much, where he just like crawls over there like a little bug. It's ridiculous. And he's like, oh, don't be like that. I brought you a present. He's the worst. Like, that cat's like, oh, why can't you just die already so I can get that book back? Oh my God. Hilarious. But yeah, he lets it out and then he's like kicks the cat. And then that's when these two mysterious ghosts show up that are asking for his help because someone is exterminating them. Now, I do think it's important to note that it was all a giant misunderstanding. The one guy that moved to the shrine with his son, who apparently Tanuma is ill, so I'm sure that's going to come into play at some point, but he was trying to purify the area, and Natsume's like, hey, the ghosts are actually fine. But it's interesting he did that purification ring, so maybe the next couple episodes some of the stronger ghosts will be kept out, or some of the weaker ones rather, and it's just the stronger ones that are left. I love Madara encouraging them to like get Natsume out of there so they can have the book. And he's like, why are they all such gigantic whips? And him flopping around like a fish. I'm like, I'm surprised Natsume hasn't just kicked him out of the house already, but he needs Madara, so he's stuck with him. What can we do? I am so fascinated by Madara and Reiko's connection and their relationship. Like I said in previous episodes, I think that Madara loved Reiko. I think he fell in love with her, and that's why he's helping Natsume out of obligation. But we'll see. Madara is one of those that comes across as being super confident and doesn't need anybody, but they were locked up in a damn shrine for who knows how long. So I feel like Madara is going to be one of those characters that we're going to find out is really lonely and isolated, and he's just like trying to pass it off with the front of him being a troll. But we'll see. We'll see if we get that or not. Punishing humans is my specialty, he says, though. And Natsume's like, oh my God, I can't. But I liked this idea that we have the notion that there are exterminators of spirits. And so Natsume kind of wonders for a second. He's like, well, does that mean I could like find people that can also see spirits and connect with them? Because so far, the only beings he's found that can also see the spirits are the spirits themselves. So the idea that he could find other humans that he can connect with and talk to, and he won't look like he's weird talking to nobody, that would be very enticing for Natsume. And I wonder if we're going to get, if Reiko ever had experiences with any of the other exterminators. Maybe she married one. Maybe that's how she ended up not being lonely anymore. I'm so curious to see if we're going to get into there being exterminators and Natsume has to deal with them and be like, hey, let's not kill the spirits. Let's just release them. And because if she has a book that she can control spirits, it's safe to say it might even be a tool that's been used by exterminators in the past, and she just got her hands on it, and now Natsume has his hands on it. So I wonder if at some point there's going to be an exterminator or an exorcist that comes around that's like, hey, why do you have that book? You're not an exorcist. It should belong to us. And they challenge Natsume, and it's a long series, so there's a lot of possibilities that could happen. I'm just saying we're going to have to see where it goes. But I loved the fake out of the girl that's the spirit, and for a second we think it's someone else he met that was like him, but it ends up he was still alone because she was a ghost. So he's still questioning whether he could find people that are like him. God, the spirits like just walking around with him, that would get so annoying so quickly. But I did love the tractor. The tractor driving by sets the stage for how rural this area is. And I'm from an extremely rural area. Like where I live, there's like 100 people. It's tiny. But you see tractors and people driving lawnmowers and tractors to get around all the time. And there's some Amish here. So there's like horses and buggies and all that. So it's like this scene of that tractor driving by. Oh, it was instantly relatable. I could instantly connect with it, which is another reason I really like this series. But yeah, I feel for Natsume too, because everybody's walking their way to school. It's rural, so they all have a big walk. And then Natsume looks like a weirdo when he's talking to nothing, seemingly, but it's these spirits. So I feel for him. And then he's trying to like play sports outside, and they keep distracting him. He gets hit in the head with the volleyball. It's like outside haiku. What can we do? What I do like, and I'm going to take a picture of it, is this one shot. It's early on in the episode, but there's Natsume, and then we cut over, and there's the kid who, Tanema, who's on the other side, and there's a clear barrier between them, like the doors are between them, to show us, the audience, that there's still a barrier separating them, and they haven't been able to connect yet. I like that episode does that. The subtlety of the artwork in this episode is so effective, but it never feels forced. It doesn't feel like it's begging you to look at it. It's very subliminal, and I like that about this a lot, because when you go back and rewatch it, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool how they did that. Neat. Also, another thing that is prevalent throughout a lot of this episode are red signs. So there's like a red triangular sign at the beginning, and then there's red signs going up to the shrine. It's almost like lots of caution signs saying that, like, hold on now, you think that this story is going a certain way, but it's not going the way you think it is. And again, it's really subtle. It's really neat. I also like that Madara is just like on the one sign, and he's just like, that's telling everybody to go back. Oh my God. It's adorable. I really like it. But Madara is such a creepy little cat. He's super cute, but the way they animate him sometimes is so creepy. I'm like, what are you doing, little cat? Adorable. Yeah, I'm just clicking through here, and every time I like stop, he's in this little pose that's actually adorable. So yeah, then we get him going to the swing set to see the ghost. And he's like, am I weird because I can see ghosts? That all makes sense now, because when she says that I don't know, I was like, girl, you should tell him he's not weird because you're the same way. But she's a ghost, so for her it is weird. So it was kind of like her avoiding the question without answering that she was a spirit, which her eyes being kind of glazed over kind of makes sense now. That should have been the indication, but I thought it was maybe since she was, because here's the thing, the show fakes you out, because when I saw her eyes were kind of glazed over, I'm like, well, maybe it's because she's an exorcist and they look different. And whenever we saw Tanema, before we realized he wasn't an exorcist, we didn't see his eyes. We always saw from the nose down. So it's like the show was trying to make you question, being like, well, maybe all exorcists look like that. And that's just part of their, they all look melancholy and tired. And maybe that's part of it. The show was trying to trick us, it was very, very effective. But man, all of these spirits attacking Natsume, and then I love that the ghosts are like, oh no, and Madara's like, these guys are nothing. You got yourself. Handle it yourself. You'll be fine. He's such a little troll. What a little asshole. Madara is just the worst sometimes. And then he gets kicked by Natsume. I love it. I feel like he's like, what? Your grandmother could hold her own. Why can't you? But then when there's the purification wave, that's when Madara like gets up into the trees. But yeah. And then they like thank him. Oh my God. Ah! That one scene where Madara's hiding behind the shrine as he's getting carried away. Ridiculous. So yeah, we're still trying to figure out what's going on. We don't get to know about Tanema. He disappears. And Natsume's wondering if there really is a chance that someone like him could exist. I love the theme of this episode where Natsume's trying to figure out if it's even possible he could find a human he could relate to. And the scene where we find out that the one girl was a ghost, oh my God. Because I thought they were like maybe related. Tanema and the girl were related, or it was going to connect that way. No, she ends up being a ghost, and Natsume freaks out, and it scares the woman that was trying to comfort him. And you understand why Natsume is so frustrated, because his foster families keep sending him away because they think he's weird. And he finally thought he had someone to connect to. And that wasn't the case. It was like, instead of being somebody he could connect to, it ends up being another ghost. And it further isolates him. And it's so creepy because the fact that she could like touch him and do all this, and that one moment was so insane where you turned around and there was nobody there. Oh my God, that was incredible. But yeah, Natsume's like, is it even possible I could find somebody to relate to? I like we come back to the two guys, and like the one guy's looking at a writing magazine. It's so random. Such a random thing. But yeah. And then the one guy's like, well, you both like being alone. You sometimes get spooked and you look like you've seen something scary. And he's like, this could be my first companion. Now, when the one ghost shows up, Mitsumu, I like that he looks like a horse. Like he's like a horse spirit. And he's like, I recognize you, Natsudomo. That insolent face is just like Reiko's. And I love that. I love there's the family resemblance that they're like connecting to. Also, I would never imagine that insolent would be the words to describe Natsume. And they want their name back very quickly, but Misuzu, that's their name, Misuzu. He's like, you saved my retainer yesterday. I was like, wait, what? So a retainer, I was like, what is that? Like, what does it mean if somebody was retainer? It's a person serving another, someone of rank, a servant. I was like, so this little tiny frog is one of Mitsumu's servants. I thought for a second it meant like they're betrothed. I just imagined this giant horse spirit engaged to this tiny frog. You saved my lover. I was like, and Madara's like, don't judge. But yeah, I feel like Madara set that up from the beginning. So yeah, and that's when Natsume is like, fine, I'll use Mitsumu to go track this person down. But the thing is, Natsume's realizing the spirits will do what he says, but also realizing that if you don't phrase it properly, then they might do more harm than good. Like sending him to go after the one exorcist when that's really not what he wanted. So there's that. So I have a feeling we're going to experiment with that in the future. Now, do I still think that Madara's name is in the book secretly? Maybe. Why else would he listen to him? Madara's so secretive and so mysterious. I'm going to be curious to see what else we get out of him. But yeah. Anyway, so they go, the moment he was going to tackle someone, I saw that the person looked bald in the forest, and I couldn't decide if it was a different person and not Tanuma from the high school, or if it was just a fake out, what it was. So we saw like the prayer beads and stuff, and I didn't know if it would be like, you know, Hanako-kun, where you see them in their like exorcist robes and they look slightly different. But in this case, I like that Madara's like, you have the Book of Friends. They're yours to command. Why aren't you doing it properly? Why aren't you being like your grandmother? And it's like, shut up. And then we see the one guy, the yokai exterminator. But he can't see any of the spirits either. He's just purifying because he moved to the area and wanted to keep it safe for his son. And Natsume's like, well, awesome. Another person that I can't relate to. Also, every time they go back to Madara in this scene and he has like the little creepy eyes, I'm like, what? It's just, he's so creepy. And he's like, perhaps he would get along well with my son. And yes, Tanuma, he ends up making a friend. So I like the end of this where Madara, before Tanuma and him meet up, Madara's like, you really love the yokai, don't you? And Natsume's like, I don't love them, but I'm forced to be around them so much that I kind of understand them better. I get what they're doing. And I feel like he's like slowly understanding why they sought out Reiko, because it's like they all want someone to be around. They're all lonely spirits. And the idea that they can connect with somebody is a big deal. I like that this series is focusing on loneliness and how we want to connect with people. And he's like, I've spent so much time talking to them. I've got to know them. And he's like, when I was a kid, I sent this woman away that was a ghost because I was scared of her and I was upset because she ended up not being a person. He's like, but now I understand why she came to me. And if she hadn't come to me in that moment, I would have been a lot sadder and felt even more isolated. So he's like, I kind of understand why she did it and I'm grateful for her. Right. And then Madara's like, okay, I'm glad I met her. And so that's when he goes to Tanuma and they like bridge the gap. Right. So Tanuma can't exactly see. I like that we scroll up and see his eyes and everything now. He's like, I see shadows and I can sense presences, but I don't fully see the ghost like you do. But it's a start. It's a start. Natsume has a potential friend, someone that can also kind of understand what he's going through. So that's really cute. I love it. We've got the Sasuke and Naruto black and yellow hair pattern going on, except this person seems a lot nicer than Sasuke. Right? And he's like, I want you to keep it a secret. We might just be the strange ones. I feel like there may be others over the course of the series that end up seeing the spirits as well that Natsume and Tanama meet. But obviously, I know why Natsume wants to keep it a secret so that they're not, targeted for bullying or anything like that. But this thing here, what he realizes at the end, like the moral of the story, the Natsume says of the episode, when he's like, it's hard for me to put into words, but I've realized something. And when he says there, whether human or yokai, when our hearts touch, we're all the same. And that's kind of like what was relating to in Pluto, which I'm watching now. There's this talk about like technology and humanity and bridging the gap. And it can relate to like different groups of people. It can relate to a lot of things, but it's basically this metaphor for even if we're from different walks of life and from different cultures or different backgrounds, we all want connection. When we connect with one another, we're all the same when our hearts touch. And the line that he says after this, being alone is just as painful for anybody. Taking the first step is scary. And that's so true. I feel like a lot of times, whether it's when you're pursuing a romantic relationship or pursuing a friendship or any type of interpersonal connection, a lot of times people get scared because that first step is scary. If you reach out to someone and they withdraw and they back away and reject you, well, that just makes it worse, right? So if you're afraid to connect to people, that first step is always scary because what if they reject you? What if they don't want to be around you? What if it isolates you even more? But taking that first step is so important because it opens those doors up. And yes, there is a chance you could get rejected, and that's going to suck, and that's going to be a bad thing. But there's also a chance that opening that door is going to lead to you forming this friendship. So yeah, once Natsume found out that Tanama was not an exorcist and couldn't see spirits, supposedly, he could have shut that door and he could have just not pursued it. But he took that step and made a friend that could potentially be somebody that keeps him from being isolated. And I'm curious to know if Reiko maybe was too afraid to take that initial step with humans, if maybe she sought out the yokai because she was too scared to take that first step, and so instead she just befriended all these spirits instead. Maybe she figured out the same thing that Natsume did just later in life. We have to wait and see, right? But yeah, and then we go back to him trying to sleep. And I like that Mitsumi was like, hello, I'd like my name back. And he's like, no, I'm too tired. I like that Natsume is slowly making concessions. He needs to just put like a sign outside his door that says, I'm working during these hours. No, I'm sleeping during these hours. Here's my office hours. This is when you can come get your name back. Otherwise, leave me alone. He needs to make a sign just outside the window and hope that his like foster mom doesn't ever see it. Or just hold up a sign on the window at night to be like, do not come here at night. Wait till the morning when I'm rested up and then I'll give you your name back. I'm still not good with yokai. My days are full of troubles. But I suppose I could talk to them, though, once in a while. I love that the yokai, they're just, like, trying to leave him things and, like, as thanks. And he's like, God damn it. He's like, they're not as bad as they seem. They're trying to be friends. I guess I could tolerate them. Also, I feel like Madara is going to be all about those fish. Now, I don't know what the flowers symbolize. I'm sure somebody in the comments will show what those flowers or berries mean. But I think it's cute that they left him like a little gift. That's really sweet. So yeah, this episode definitely subverted a lot of things. I thought for a second it was going to get a lot more action oriented. I also thought that we were going to get connections with Tanama and the girl and this whole setup, but that is not what happened. But we end up learning a little bit more about Natsume. We get to see him interact a little bit more with the ghosts. We get to see him being able to control a yokai, which is really cool. That could definitely come into play later. And we get a little bit more into the world of the exorcists to see like what all they're going to do. So that part's fascinating to me as well. But yeah, I'm super excited. I can't wait to see what we get next episode. That should be a lot of fun. But oh my gosh, this was a really cute episode. Nice standalone one, but I'm going to be excited to see what we get for episode 4. We're setting things up, right? Setting things up slowly but surely. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Natsume Yujin-Cho or Natsume's Book of Friends.